It's not only bad policy interpretation that's undermining good and best practice when it comes to the drug use space and drug policy implementation. There are, of course, the clear and brazen pro-drug advocates who want to legalise everything for their own benefit. Again, these libertarians, or libertines, depending on which particular label you want to give them, form different groups and lobby groups, and they of course are working all over the planet from different sectors, from pro-cannabis lobby groups to other groups that advocate for the use of psychedelics, for party drugs, again profoundly just for I want to do drugs because it's my body, my life, etc. Which again the sociologist J.S. Mill quoted on having. For example, there's a group called Unharm, a permission model, and they work with international organisations to try and maximise the benefit of drug use by minimising the harms behind it. And of course they want to see harm reduction more and more implemented, and of course they want to see demand reduction and supply reduction basically erased. One of the things about these groups, as you'll see on screen, is that they are funded, again, as we heard earlier on, by one of the biggest philanthropists in the world, George Soros' organisation, and Open Society is often the biggest funder of these enterprises. Some of the initiatives in play: Party Safer. So again, the idea of we're going to take as many drugs as we can as safely as possible, and anyone who tries to stop us is a bad guy. We start to talk about the groups, and of course a lot of the pro-drug groups always citing examples of other nations who've stepped into the so-called legalisation space, as we mentioned very early on in our video about Sweden, how they were the ones who initially let everything off the chain, as it were, and had to reel it all in, and have now got one of the most successful demand reduction policies on the planet. Holland is often cited as one of the great successes in drug policies, but even as you'll see up here, the price of permission is proving too high, and some of the things that are now occurring after decades of use, and again a misinterpretation of their policy, is also in play. The Dutch have never legalised cannabis. They've decriminalised it, and now they're starting to reel that back in with their cafes being shut down. They're only half of what they were even 4 years ago, 5 years ago. Narco-terrorism's now an issue. And again, they're starting to realise that this soft drug legalisation leads to so many other aspects, and it doesn't actually negate the problem. Portugal is consistently put up as the poster girl, poster boy for great drug policy in the world. The study by the Cato Institute is often wielded as the benchmark for the great insight into the Portugal drug policy success. But in short, the Cato Institute hired a lawyer who made the best case possible for the effectiveness of the Portuguese policy. It was an exercise in building a subset of facts that supported the Institute's policies for drug liberalisation. The report's limitations are supporting analysis not definitive, fails to recognise other factors, adverse data trends not reported, core drug use reduction claims not conclusive, and methodologically limited. Of course, you don't hear that when people parrot about the Portugal case studies. The Cato Institute report does not present sufficient evidence to support claims regarding causal effects of Portugal's drug policy on usage rates. It is safe to say that claims by drug liberalisation advocates regarding the impact of Portugal's drug policy exceed the existing scientific basis. Again, furthermore, in 2010, the Obama administration essentially dismissed the report, stating it was difficult, however, to draw any clear, reliable conclusions from the report regarding the impact of Portugal drug policy changes. Again, these permission models keep getting put up as best practice. But are they? Again, Portugal, recent article, alcohol, tobacco and drug consumption rise over the last 5 years. Consumption of alcohol and tobacco and illegal psychoactive substances, mainly cannabis, have increased in the last 5 years in Portugal, according to this study. Interesting, the decline in drug use was never an issue, but in fact it was supposed to help with the decline, but in fact it's done the opposite, it's increased. And the harms from each episode are growing, and the new demographics are in play are quite concerning. For example, in Portugal, women are increasingly turning to alcohol and cannabis. One of the main findings in the annual report in 2018 that was women between the ages of 25 and 44 We're taking more drugs, namely cannabis. And again, because of the permission model in play, believing that it's safe, believing that it's a healthier alternative. And so they're involved in that space, but it's causing, of course, ongoing harms. From Kevin Sabet, the founder of Smart Approaches to Marijuana, along with one of the Kennedy sons, a politician in America who's an ex-drug addict, they started SAM several years ago to combat the rising liberalisation policies around cannabis. And I'm quoting, "Marijuana addiction is real, and simply ignoring this health condition will only cost us down the road. We should assess marijuana users for drug use disorders as well as mental health problems, and assist those into recovery, not ongoing drug use. This can't happen in a climate that promotes use." Again, the permission model consistently undermines best healthcare practice and best drug policy practice. This is what our current permissive narrative is enabling, the easy push. We must ask, with all our progressive sophistry and enlightened humanity, is all we can offer for the broken addict and the emerging bored and culturally and historically ignorant emerging generation is the means to promote or stay in addiction. Really, is that it? Is this the best we have to offer? Worse still is that with all the serious youth issues and causes that this safe, educated, wealthy culture can engage in and focus on, things such as youth unemployment, which is high, youth suicide, which is high, youth mental health issues, which are increasing, youth homelessness, which is high, and youth productivity, which is in decline. All these issues warrant attention, and there are great causes to pursue and bring resolution and change to. In all the things we could focus our attention and energies on, and Generation Next can focus their attentions and energies on, the cause we choose to promote with our hapless youth is increased illicit drug use. Our young people are being conned by this so-called permissive progressive agenda. The cause that our young people are being seduced and conned into pursuing right now, the one that's getting all the traction, is about the ongoing and increased use of psychotropic toxins. That's it. With everything else in play, that's it. And some of this is fostered by what is supposed to be cultural leaders and societal leaders, politicians, doctors, social workers. These are the people who should be protecting, not enabling harm to our kids. In this space, getting high will only worsen the dignity, agency, and capacity reducing issues already harming this demographic. Drug use and getting stoned and getting high is not going to help with youth homelessness. It's going to make it worse. It's going to make mental health issues worse. It's going to make suicide issues worse. It's going to make productivity worse. Yet this is touted as the great new cause. Again, by so-called cultural architects. They promise fun, they promise enlightenment, and sophistication even. That's rarely the real story behind drug use. One of the things that's scary in our culture right now, there's a price we're paying for our permission. One of the fastest growing industries in this country, and I use the word industry very, very pointedly, is kin care. Children are being looked after by people other than their biological parents because their biological parents are now no longer able to look after them because of their substance use, whether it be legal or illegal. And consequently, their kids are in crisis and have to be either taken by the state or grandparents or aunties or uncles look after them. Most children came into grandparent care as a result of one of 6 of the following factors. I want you to notice these ones. 45% came into care because of parental drug addiction. 42% came into care because of domestic violence, because of family breakdown, because of neglect, because the parent was unable to cope, because of alcohol abuse. No prizes for hands up. Which one of these, alcohol and other drugs, was a key issue? In fact, all of them are. even though they're stated in 2 of those particular demographics. Alcohol and other drugs add to the domestic violence, the family breakdown, the neglect, and the parents' inability to cope. Parental substance abuse and risks to children's safety, health and psychological development, 2016. Get this from the conclusions. Parents' substance abuse can cause a variety of harms to children, which may be related to unsafe environment, long-standing stress, non-adequate responding to the child's needs. Multi-professional work with substance abusing parents and their children is crucial in order to reduce children's risk for poor health. All this stems from the so-called right the pro-drug lobby wants you to believe you have to use substances. And the harms that are being done to people outside of the drug user are horrendous, particularly the young and the most vulnerable. And of course, it goes on through this particular data here. We now know that trauma in childhood is linked to drug use in adolescence. So all of these, even if the child doesn't take drugs as a child, their trauma that they experience at the hand of these dysfunctional and broken parents adds to their potential to uptake drugs in the future. And again, when was the last time a cigarette caused this to happen? Yet we rail so avidly against them, but we say next to nothing about the harms done by illicit drugs to these families and particularly children.